Hey everyone, Mrhappy here, and welcome to Mondays with Mrhappy, aka Mrhappy Mondays, the weekly Q&A show where you ask me questions and I answer them. Some videos at the bottom. I mostly just have videos from the fan festival this last weekend, the European Fan Festival. Exciting things happening there. Samurai, of course, being revealed, and it being a DPS, and I'm not going to get chewed out on State of the Realm for that. Blitzball, while they do say maybe, they do also talk about how they've been talking about it in the rooms and how when they do it, it's a natural progression that they add it to the game. It's just a matter of figuring out exactly how to implement it without either disappointing or making it so different nobody wants it. And then, of course, we had the live letter on Sunday, which was chock full of a lot of glamour questions and then some good questions, even some good glamour questions, some of it very data related. So overall, a pretty good weekend in terms of information. And now the 4-month grind of media and press events, as well as, other conventions that Yoshi P will be attending, live letters. That's where we can finally start chugging along and getting more specifics on the information. Specifically in April or May is when we're really expecting a lot of the meat to hit when it comes to Stormblood, as opposed to these fan festival overly general observations that we've made. But anyway, I'm tired as hell, honestly, despite the glare on my glasses. I'm only wearing them because I look tired as all hell because I haven't slept much the past couple of days. So I'm not even doing this live on Twitch this week, but it has been a fantastic weekend. Thank you to those of you who've been enjoying the content on the channel. Let's hope to many more months of good news and information. We've got some stuff to look forward to this week and the next couple of weeks as well. So please look forward to it. Hi. Anyway, let's move on to the questions, shall we? All right, first question. Haps, I'm sorry, but I don't need a live stream when I'm live there. Yeah, you don't. You know what? You are absolutely right, and I hate you for it. Anyways, I finished Final Fantasy 15 because it begged me to. So all of these are Final Fantasy 15 spoiler questions. So we're going to do the spoiler warning. Thank you for the spoiler tags on those, by the way. We hide it so nobody sees on screen. You guys look for this. When I do this again, this means spoilers have started now. When you see this again, that means you're donezo. So I'm actually going to take question number 1, which is about Arden. What if Arden didn't have the need to rule and just did continuously good to watch this monster title from him? It doesn't matter if he did that, because ultimately he was shunned by the gods and kicked out of a kingdom that was rightfully his to rule. And because he was literally infected with the Star Scourge. Like, he himself existing was a danger to all existence, even though he technically made the ultimate sacrifice to protect everyone he knew and everyone in the world. So, it's just a tragic hero story where he did the right thing. He did what he thought would save the world, and it turned him into the villain. So it doesn't matter if he constantly did good. He was still, at nature, an evil being because of what resided inside of him. Spoilers done. Alright, next question. Yo, what up, Haps? Yo, what up? Because I like you, here's a bonus. You're allowed to kill one Moogle of your choice, and he, she, it will never return. Good King Moggle, good King Moggle, Lord of all the land. We'll go with that one. Now let's play a little game of who did it better. Realm Reborn versus Heavensward. Dungeons. So Realm Reborn on the quantity part, especially getting 3 experts. However, Heavensward on the quality part for dungeons. 8-man raids. You know what? That's actually a tough one. I definitely felt more engrossed with the Coil story, and I enjoyed the average-ish difficulty of Coil, but my biggest thing with Coil was second Coil Savage. For me, Heavensward, Alexander's story isn't as engrossing to me. Gordius was fun for me when I progressed it up until A4 Savage, and I loved Midas. Midas has some of my favorite raid boss design. And Creator was fun and it wasn't too overly stressful. So there are pros and cons. Realm Reborn was mostly just a bosses kind of felt insignificant, other than a handful, like pretty much 4 of them felt pretty insignificant, and they weren't really fun mechanically outside of Second Coil Savage, or outside of Second Coil and Second Coil Savage. So that's a tough one, but I think I'm going to give the edge to a Realm Reborn. Coil is just too epic for me to turn it down. 24-man raids, other than the Void Ark, I feel like Heavensward had the higher quality altogether. Labyrinth of the Ancients, while it was very visually appealing, it wasn't a very interesting raid. Although they did take the aesthetics where you go left and then right and then forward and then up. It was just a very cool way of progressing through the dungeon. Circus Tower, the bosses were kind of disappointing in Circus Tower. World of Darkness was probably my favorite of the A Realm Reborn. But when I think of Heavensward, I just think of how the Weeping City of Mach and Dunskaith were like really, like, everything was phenomenal about those. And even Void Ark, outside of being a little bit undertuned, was a very fun raid. And it definitely wasn't overly stressful. It just definitely was the weakest of all the 24-mans for me. That being said, Dunskaith and Mach were so good to me. I love them so much. I'm going with Heavensward on this one. Trials. So when you say trials, I'm going to assume you mean primals and the solo instances. The solo instances definitely goes to Heavensward. As for the primals, so Garuda, Titan, Ifrit, Leviathan, Good King, Moggle, Mog, Ramu, Steps of Faith. We might as well consider Steps of Faith a trial. I think it's in the trial. Yeah, it's in the trial. Let's we'll go with that. The 3 Gilgamesh, I mean, well, the 2 Gilgamesh, the one with Ultros. I don't know, man. I think A Realm Reborn wins trials. Not just because of the quantity, but because they were I don't know, they were more interesting to me. Sephiroth and Thornton are my clear favorites from Heavensward, but Sophia, Zervin, Bismarck, and yeah, no, that's all of them, isn't it? And then they just have like, and then Nidhogg. They weren't all that overwhelming. Nidhogg had an epic feel, but I was definitely underwhelmed by the majority of the Heavensward primals outside of what their story implications were. So I'm going to give trials to A Realm Reborn. Areas, Heavensward. I hate looking for hunts in the Heavensward areas, but they were infinitely more interesting to me. So that's an easy one. Story, easily. I don't even need to know if Heavensward, I don't even need to see 3.55 Part A to know that Heavensward wins that. Right from the beginning, from 3.0, all through all the patches, the meat on those bones were far more plentiful than all of A Realm Reborn. 2.1 to 2.3, even the first half of 2.4 especially, were incredibly underwhelming. With the end of 2.4 and all of 2.5 being really the only high points, even the first half of 2.5 kind of sucked, to be honest, outside of the feels and the callbacks to Louis Sua's staff. So Heavensward wins story easily. For me, I feel like it was a pretty fair assessment, but a good question. All right, next one. Howdy Haps have a post-FanFest fake question roulette. The first 2 are meant as jokes, so they don't count. Just reveal them. Okay. If they're meant as jokes, then that's cool. If Samurai won, how do you think Blue Mage could work? You know what? I don't even know how that's a joke. If Blue Mage won, how do you think Samurai could work? I guess these aren't really joke questions. Like, they're just like, they don't have relevance, I guess. I don't even know if I would call them joke questions, because it's not like there's a punchline, you know what I mean? But Samurai 1, I think you should have asked if Samurai 1 tank or DPS. I mean, that's kind of a fair question, but regardless, how do you feel about what it revealed? Let's see. A change of pants. What reveal did excite you the most least? So the least exciting reveal for me across all the fan festivals, and every time they bring it up, it's always the least exciting for me, is swimming. I don't care for it. Yes, it's cool in terms of world building, and I do agree that if your game is built around having swimming and diving, just natural swimming elements from the beginning, it creates it creates a sense of flow in the world. You don't ever feel like you're boxed off and separated from your world, which is really a really powerful thing for a game to do, which is why it sucked that Final Fantasy XIV didn't have it in the first place. But adding it now and highlighting it as a feature and adding new things around it doesn't really seem beneficial in any way. I doubt it's going to provide much more in terms of gameplay. We'll probably see a few more good screenshots on Reddit, and they'll probably mess around with swimming in a bit, because if you get hit in the water, you die. So they could easily incorporate that into certain aspects of the game. I'm just curious to see how it actually ends up working out. That's my least favorite of all of them, because they keep bringing it up and showing it again. I'm going to use that. As for what excited me the most, Authored. Authored was something I had written off as a place we weren't going. We know Doma was razed to the ground, and apparently pieces of it are still there. Even if under Garlean control, the city-state itself is in one piece, despite the language that Yagiri used when she described it. The areas out there are far more interesting. The Azim Steppe, really, I loved the Azim Steppe. It was just a beautiful zone to me. And I don't know. So for me, it's just Authored, because it was so out of left field, and I wasn't expecting it, and I look forward to the beautiful music and scenery that are coming out of that place. All right, next question. OMG 3.55 is almost here. Yes, it is indeed. Anyways, what can Square Enix do to help ease or fix this lull towards the end of an expansion while everyone waits for the next expansion? I.e., 2.5, 2.55, 3.0. Now we have 3.5, 3.55, 3.55A and B technically at this point, and 4.0. Do you think the new Diadem and new Season of Feast will be enough to keep players playing until Stormblood? So they said that 3.55 is the beginning of Season 4's preseason, but not its season itself. I don't know that they'll actually do a Season 4 prior. We have a new Feast map. We have the diadem. We have the remainder of the story. There's quality of life things. They'll unlock Savage creator at some point so that you can do it as many times as you want. There's always prepping your crafters and your gatherers and any combat jobs you don't have at 60 if you're interested in that. Making some guild to get ready for maybe the new housing, or to get to just be able to buy certain things upon release, maybe glamour, maybe raiding gear. For me, it's a lot about prep time. So for me, it's just I want to take a break at some point, because the last thing I want to do is play a game continuously every day for the next 4 months with little to no really meaty updates. Obviously, the diadem, or the diadem as it's actually pronounced, Proto Ultima, those are cool, but those aren't going to tide me over. So for me, it's like I want to take like a month break, like maybe in May. So that way, when I come back in June and I get to enjoy Stormblood, I don't feel the sense like, oh, I've been playing every day, getting ready for this. It's finally here. I get a sense like, you know what, now I took a break. I feel refreshed. I'm really looking forward to it. So I don't even think about it the way that you're suggesting, but I feel like they're approaching it as best they can. It's not a huge gap in time. It's about a 3.5 to 4 month gap without content, and I don't feel like that's that bad. Considering the expansion will be coming out immediately after that, and then everyone's leveling everything, and new crafters, gatherers, yada, yada, yada. You know how it goes. All right, next question. Yo, Mr. Happy. Between the time of this posting and your recording Mondays, we'll have seen all the results of FanFest. I've no doubt watched any videos you posted about it over the weekend, so here's the question. Now that the initial hype has died down, what are you most excited about from the keynote speech? So I think I just went over that with the other one. Did you see anything that you don't like about the Stormblood plan? Now I'm going to treat this separately from the swimming and the diving and talk specifically about the Stormblood plan. We know they have tripled the budget. I believe that budget is actually for the entirety of 4.0. Not just 4.0 itself. I don't think they get a bigger budget for 4.1, 4.2, 4.3, unless otherwise needed or justifiable. So for me, the big thing with the plan is that we're seeing that they keep talking about an increase of the quality of content. You know, they want to make sure the music is better. They want to make sure the story is authentic and interesting. They're bringing in big names for the 24-man raid. You know, they want to satisfy to some degree the super hardcore people, the masochists like me, something they really don't have to do and shouldn't honestly be expected to do, considering the small percentage of players that will actually get to enjoy that content. As much as it is content for me, I acknowledge I am part of a very small group of the population that want content like that. Which to me is the most important thing, is the quality. The problem is it's still higher quality of all the same things. I'm not saying we need a completely different MMO, but that will always be my main gripe, is that this is more of the same stuff. We don't know enough about Eureka. We don't know enough about the balance changes and the job changes yet. We don't know how new things are going to play. And that's information that when you just see the Stormblood plan in the FanFest seems underwhelming, because you just don't know anything specific and you can't just take their word on it. You need to see results. So my problem with the Stormblood plan right now is that they keep talking about the quality, but they don't talk about it actually being systematically different. Are we just going to get another 2.0, which isn't a bad thing, mind you, but it's very uninteresting from a gameplay standpoint. So that is currently my biggest problem with the Stormblood plan, is that it doesn't seem to be innovating at all. It seems to just be trying to patch up certain things and add new things that are already part of their working formula. Hopefully that was an adequate answer. All right, next question. Hey, Mrhappy dude. What's going on, man? First off, I'd like to say thank you for answering my machinist question a couple weeks ago. I now suck 10% less at the job than when I started. Hella deeps, like goddamn wildfires. Alright, good. For this week in regards to Stormblood expansion and the dropping of the PS3 support, I remember hearing, although I could be mistaken, that part of the reason why things such as character customization is limited is in part to the way memory limitations of the PS3. So memory limitations in general are a problem the game faces, even for our existing PC and PS4. But yes, memory limitations are one of the big things. The number of items you can display on screen at simultaneously is a big problem with the PS3. It's not so much the amount of data, it's about what the PS3 can actually process and show to the player visually, graphically, and functionally, holding them back. That's why they have all their own user interface options, or they don't have the same user interface options that things like the PS4 and the PC have. Ultimately, do you think they add more in terms of customization upon the drop of PS3? For example, maybe not sliders. Yeah, FanFest has happened. We'll talk about sliders at some point. But maybe 10 options for eyes instead of 4. So no matter what, like I said, the PC and the PS4 version, the fact that there's that much data being sent, when you're in an area, everyone's data is constantly being sent back and forth, not just your own. So that was the problem that they described at Fan Festival, because they were asked about more character creation options, and they said that they don't think it's going to be possible currently. They're focusing on other things data-wise, you know, inventory, you know, indoor furnishing count and things like that. So I don't think we'll see any more of this. I mean, they flat out said we wouldn't, but I think it'll be a very long time before we see a large increase of options in the general character customization like that. And I can understand why people want more of it. I agree. Character customization can always be improved, but it's a matter of what is feasible for them, and without actually knowing what it's like on the back end, it's very hard for me to just go, oh, why don't they just add this? And I won't do that, you know. I wish I could, but I just can't. Alright, next question. Hello, Mr. Happy, and greetings from Detroit. Yo, Detroit. I've never been there. Probably wouldn't be there. I can't think of a reason why I'd be in Detroit. Moving on. So just to catch you up, all primals cleared. Awesome. 6 birds obtained. Awesome. Just waiting on Zervin to drop for once. That's getting buffed in about a week and a half, so you're good to go. About 8 days from when you see this, actually. My questions this time have to deal with the primals. Last week you were asked if you liked the Realm Reborn over Heavens Reborn. In fact, I was just asked that earlier. The same episode. Do you think they made the fights better in Heavensward since they were lesser known primals? I don't see, that's the thing. I don't think the fights, I think maybe thematically the fights were better. They were cooler themes, but the actual fights and their mechanics and what made them unique, it didn't really resonate with me. I wasn't too impressed with Heavensward's primals, mostly because the tuning was done very, very poorly. So I guess I don't really have much to expand upon from what I said earlier. But you do have a second question here, so I'm going to just jump right into that one. Do you think the 4 fiends from 4 are viable as trials? I mean, yeah, I mean, even just the 4 fiends from 1. I mean, the problem with the 4 fiends from 1 is they're so generic. You have Lich, you have Tiamat, which obviously we wouldn't get. You had, oh man, I don't even remember all the Final Fantasy 1 fiends. It's been too long. Because Merilith, yeah, Merilith was, yeah, okay, so that one was Merilith. And then what was the other one? Tiamat, Merilith, Lich. Oh man, I gotta take away my Final Fantasy card for not remembering all of the 4 fiends. Oh, the Kraken. There you go, and the Kraken. So Tiamat, Kraken, Merilith, and Lich are all Final Fantasy 1. Yeah, I don't know how I didn't remember that. And obviously, plenty of those have problems. So the 4 fiends from 4 are more likely. Rubicante, Scarmiglione, Cagnazzo, and Barbarisha. I think we are very likely to see those. Barbarisha I'd especially like because her tornado mechanic, obviously you wouldn't need to bring a Dragoon to jump in, but you could very well have mechanics, vertical type mechanics, where you need to you know, interrupt that in some way using another mechanic that either drops some sort of harpoon on her or allows you to jump in to the, like, in order, like, maybe she goes to the middle of the room with the tornado and you have to fight your way up stairwells on the side. There's like trash that spawns along the way, or walls you have to kill, and it's like a DPS check. And when you get to the top, you can jump in and DPS her from inside her tornado without getting hurt. Obviously, if you touch the walls, you die. And then once you do that, you can break her out of it in order to remove that part, that phase of the fight. Like I like to think about things like that, and I feel like there's a lot of potential there with Cagnazzo, Barbarisha, Rubicante, and Scarmiglione. And next question. Hello, Mr. Happy. I'm not new, but no, I greatly appreciate your time. I greatly appreciate you taking the time to ask your question. And it's a short one. Which class of each role do you think is the hardest to learn to play at Savage Extreme rating level? Never mind, it's the shortest question with the longest possible answer. I'll try and keep it short. Hardest to learn. Tank is probably Dark Knight, because dancing between Grit as a newer tank is a lot harder maybe than bouncing between the stances of the other ones. Paladin has its own problems with stance dancing that gets a little annoying, but with Grit, it's, you know, you're more often locked out by MP and Grit than you are locked out in any other tank stance. So bouncing with Dark Knight, I'd probably say, on top of all the abilities they have a lot of abilities on the off global cooldown. Then you have, let's see, for DPS. See, DPS, I don't think there is one that's hardest to learn. Black Mage maybe, because if you don't know a fight, you will lose Enochian, you will waste ley lines, you will do it so much. And if you don't improve, or if you don't make an active effort to improve your positioning, then that's one of the jobs that's going to bite the most. So I'm going to go with Black Mage for the DPS, even though Summoner, in terms of the ranged casters, which I do think are probably the 2 oddest roles to learn, not even the hardest. They have a lot of buttons in their opener, but after that, it's fairly simple undergoing. And once you've mastered that opener, anytime you have to do it again, you just do it again. And other than that, I feel like their upkeep isn't that bad. As for healers, that's also a tough one, man. I think healers get shit on a lot as a role entirely. You know, the expectation of DPSing, especially in endgame raids, or being able to balance doing just enough healing and then also adding in DPS when necessary, and perfectly timing certain abilities to coincide with protecting your tanks, or needing to, as soon as you have to waste an off-global cooldown to save someone who screwed up, then all of a sudden your rotation's thrown off. I think all of them are pretty rough. Scholar might be the easiest of them, not because it's an easy job, but just because what's expected of you is not as intense as the other two healers, unless you're solo healing. So yeah, I'm going to go with Scholar for the healer role. I hope that's an adequate enough answer, because I'm not 100% confident in that. Next question. Hello, Senor Feliz. Quick question. I've always assumed that ranged physical LB is more potent than mage LB, only because mage LB has a bigger area, is easier to target. But I've recently found contradictory information. Which one is actually more potent? Has it been tested? So you don't even have to test it. You can check the potency of them in game. I can't remember where though. I remember highlighting it on stream one day. Is it? No, it's not the limit break thing itself. I can't remember. I swear there was a way to check it in game. Maybe I'm wrong. But yes, the ranged physical limit break is indeed weaker, despite the smaller range and the more focused line AoE. It is indeed weaker than the caster limit break. Maybe that's because ranged DPS have this support aspect to them, so they thought to do that. Maybe it's because, no, you know what, you can't use the whole, oh, they can run around freely, so, you know, normal, you know, their normal conditions. No, because you can't do that really anymore. So yeah, but yeah, it's been tested. The ranged physical LB is indeed weaker than the caster limit break. All right, next question. Greetings from South Jersey. You know, that's the part of Jersey that's actually okay. Second question, but please accept this Aetheryte ticket for a round trip to Jersey of your choice. The problem is you just gave me one Aetheryte ticket for a round trip. That's not how Aetheryte tickets work, so I think you're just trying to trap me back in hell. Anyway, just finished watching your first impressions of the EU FanFest keynote and starting to think about prepping for the expansion. Now that Samurai has been announced as a DPS that will share gear with Monk, any further thoughts on what Red Mage... So Red Mage, the natural line of thought there is that it would share Black Mage Summoner gear. Aesthetically, that kind of looks weird because you have this caster dancing in with cloth armor and these fluffy outfits. You know what I mean? Like, I can't imagine a lot of Black Mage sets making sense when you see them on Red Mage, but it's just, I find it weird that they neglected to comment on their main stat. Yes, I understand they will do both, they will jump into melee range and they will also do ranged caster, you know, ranged magic DPS, but ultimately they're classified as a ranged magic DPS, a ranged caster. So that's got to be, it's probably all magic damage despite jumping in for physical damage. So, you know, I'd want to believe it's Black Mage. It couldn't really be White Mage gear, you know what I mean? Or it could be its own set. I mean, I'd have to go with the safe bet and just say caster gear, intelligence. Maybe it has its own gear set that's separate, but I really hope they don't keep doing that, because that begins to get a little annoying in a sense when it comes to raid drops and whatnot, because it's like, oh great, one more job I have to worry about if it drops from the boss. That already happens with the final raid tier boss, which drops one weapon when you kill it, and there's 13 weapons in the game. Luckily we have the tokens at the very least. Alright, next one. Hey Mr. Happy, no bonus once again, but here's another cookie. You know, I had cookies, these really high quality cookies that Mel brought home from Los Angeles last week. I can't remember the name of the place, but it's like the highest quality cookie that you're gonna get. Not the highest in the world, but it's up there. Since Monk and Samurai are gonna be sharing gear, do we know? Oh, okay. I just answered this question. Woo! Okay. I'm gonna leave this in the video. I'm gonna move on to the next question. Yeah. All right, now after that easy one, hello. Hashtag SamDPS hype. Yes, sir. I am confused about the sudden switch of the expansion's focus from Alamigo to Author. So there was not a switch in focus. From what we have heard in interviews, it is a 50% focus on both of them, with ultimately trying to push back against Garlemald being the main theme. Since these are two nations that we're now going to be working with very extensively, it only makes sense that, you know, if they help each other, if we help them and they help each other, then we have a better chance of us just trying to help Alamigo and then us just trying to help, you know, Doma over on the other side. If we're able to push back from multiple fronts, we have more allies. We're banding together. The Eorzean alliance is large enough to actually contend with the Magitech of Garlemald. I still think that's a little bit of an overstatement. I think even all of our armies combined doesn't really stand a chance, which really tells me something big is happening in Garlemald, or is about to happen in Garlemald. That makes it so they can't just squash us like bugs if they wanted to. And that, to me, is one of the most exciting things that we're going to see there. If so, who's the Warrior of Light looking samurai in the extended trailer? I assume that the Warrior of Light that was in All Amigo just used an Aetheryte ticket and teleported to Kugane, and then he job changed, and for some reason he's fucking people up in the main city. I don't know. You know, no, yeah, I don't think it's so much that he has two jobs. Just they wanted to show samurai in a cool way. It's the first time they've shown a new job in a trailer, by the way. They just wanted to, it just looks cool. There you go, it looks cool. That's all it is. Just the Warrior Light looking cool. He just teleported and changed job, easy. Next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, don't let the talk of Blitzball get you down. Man. With the confirmation of the 2 DPS jobs, some tank and healer players are frustrated, understandably. I find with this, especially with the mention that the current healers and tanks are being overhauled. I mean, every job's being overhauled, though, so it's not exclusive to you guys, just remember that. With a shout out to Paladin. Yeah, we know you Paladins really want buffs. We'll do something, I promise. While the vindictive child in me wants the best new comp to emerge, this to include Paladin, Dark, White Mage, Astro, I doubt this will happen without limiting the current War or Scholar kits, which probably won't go over well. Barring that, what do you think Stormblood should bring when it comes to balancing the tanks and healers, since there is no new job to fall back on? No matter what you do, there will always be people who mathematically calculate out what is best and what is not. Final Fantasy XIV just has this really emerging, it's not really emerging, it already emerged, this mentality that if something is better than the other thing, then you are dumb for playing it. It is, I've seen it in World of Warcraft where, you know, I've seen people get made fun of for playing a spec or a class, but unless it's like the top of the top, I don't see it as much. In Final Fantasy XIV, people who don't even raid make fun of paladins for not being good in raids. 600 DPS bards make fun of white mages for not being chosen as much as astrologians and scholars. It's like this mentality that, it's like a mob mentality of people who just only listen to the min-maxers, and yes, they are right. Yes, those things are best, and yes, these things are absolutely numerically worst in terms of their utility and their output. But I've never seen it so aggressive like in Final Fantasy XIV. You ultimately just need to make it so that they're all functional, and that they all at least provide something comparable. If you try to give them unique utilities, yes, something is always going to be best. And if the only way to meet perfect balance is to completely homogenize, or to increase the raid size every single time you increase a new job, so that there's room for one of every job, in which case it doesn't even matter, because if a job is dominant over another job, people just bring more of it. So it's really tough for me to nail down one specific thing. I'll just say this: White Mage, they gutted its utility because they thought that the Protect and Stone Skin shit was too unique, and then they gave Astro 20% balances. I don't know what the thought process there. So give White Mage something other than their incredibly potent healing that they can bring to raids. As for Paladins, there's a lot of little problems that the job has. Clemency's cast time shouldn't even be there, in my opinion. Zero AoE presence in the terms of damage. Even the blind on flash really stops working after dungeons, except on the occasional raid ad, you know what I mean? On top of that, blocking is not all too reliable. They're only really effective against physical damage, and a lot of bosses do magic damage. You know, there's just so many things that they could do. Monk has, you know, all selfish raid utilities. Mantra's great, but the healing's not really necessary. So it's all about retooling these things to be things that the party values more. Because otherwise, you're just going to end up in the same situation. And the same could be said for Samurai Red Mage. They may have the same problems. So we'll see. But that's the best I can do, because realistically, it shouldn't be as big of a problem as it is, but it is a problem. On that note, next question. Hey, Mr. Happy, your bonus this week is jump potions for all your crafters. You don't understand how great of a person you are. I'm just leveling them one at a time with the fucking Moogle quests. I hate myself. I hate myself. I wish I was joking. I'm laughing because I'm really serious. Anyway, my question is, if my free company moves our house to the new zone, will players without the expansion be able to access it? You know, that is a fantastic question. I am going to assume the answer is no, only because it's being listed as a feature of the expansion. That is a great question. What if, no, they have to, no, I take that back. They have to let you in that zone. There's no way that a free company who's constantly inviting new players is going to go, no, fuck it, go buy the expansion, then you can come to our house. Realistically, that's a natural progression for people playing the game. They'll start with a Realm Reborn and then maybe buy the expansion. But it's still like, that's such a weird thing to do. I just can't imagine that disconnect. So I imagine you won't be able to leave the housing zone to go to the other Stormblood areas, but I have to think they will let new players enter that housing area. It would be really surprising to me if they didn't. All right, next one. Yo, Mr. Happy, a couple of questions, so thank you for your time. Thank you for asking them. All right, so now that Samurai is official and playing Switch, I want to work towards getting it some gear for 60. Will Monk Shire gear just add Samurai to its availability, or will 60 be where Samurai gets its own armor? So they didn't say Samurai was going to get its own armor. Obviously, artifact armor, and there's more than a handful of sets that are job-specific in the game. That being said, they just straight up said monks and samurai share gear. They didn't say it stops at a certain level. So I'd imagine you'd be fine just picking up the Shire gear for monk. I mean, based on what they said, new information may be shed in the next 4 months. Obviously, that can always change. But for now, I just get monk level 60 gear. And as for the second question, because of Dunscape and a recent sloppy expert roulette dungeon, I found more situations where it's harder to see the back area of monsters. Either the boss turns a lot or they're tiny, on top of players causing constant explosions. I fumbled a bit trying to land back attacks. Is there any way to make it easier for that circle indicator to stick out? You know, that's something you should ask them. That's actually, I feel, a fair question, especially on smaller units when they're all bunched up for seeing positionals. I feel like that's a fair question. We could see it like a live letter or a fan fest. Because I feel like it's reasonable. I feel like it's a reasonable question. I don't have any tips for you. I tried asking that next time they do a Q&A for like a live letter or something. And next question. Hey Haps, not new, so no bonus, but thanks for your time. You guys have been thanking me for my time a lot. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. What do you think about the 3 new zones and how big they'll be compared to 2.0 and 3.0? Given that they've had a larger budget for the expansion, how do you think the overall land mass will compare? Finally, have you seen the teaser for the Square Enix and Marvel team up? Yes, I have. Kind of psyched for what they might do. So, I think they'll be as big as the 3.0 zones. I think the Azim Steppe looks deceptively bigger than it is. I anticipate it to be about the size of the Gervanian Forelands, or maybe the Sea of Clouds. It'll definitely be one of the bigger zones of the expansion, but I don't expect it to be massive compared, and I don't think the budget really makes a difference there. I think it might be easier to design wide open plains and make it a bigger zone. That might be one reason why it seems so big. But I don't think the budget, see, that's the thing, I kind of want to have a video discussing where I think the budget is going, because I don't think the budget is necessarily going into things like larger zones, more dungeons, more raid bosses. It seems to be going into, like I said earlier, the quality of things, and you know, the ability to hire more staff to accomplish certain technical feats a little bit faster. And again, I don't think it's just for the 4.0 launch. I have a feeling that tripled budget is more likely for the entirety of the expansion, which, by the way, 36 million, pretty low. So my Square Enix is still only, I mean, obviously with the way 1.0 went, they played it super safe with Heavensward, and it only had the $12 million budget, which is, in this day and age, a very low budget to work with for a AAA MMO title compared to what probably some of the other titles have paid. This one's got 36 million. We'll see where it goes, but I have a feeling it's not going to result in just straight up more. I think it's going to result in better, or maybe more consistency in the development process and overcoming technical feats. I think this is the second to last question, so let's get to it. No hello, so you're rude. Sad face. I have feelings too. I have feelings. Anyway, being as we're heading to Doma, I shall say Ohio happy. Oh, never mind. He said hi after. I look dumb now. For your bonus, I give you the endless mounds of salt that came from FanFest EU. I mean, best in slot level samurai gear. Hopefully my questions weren't ones that have been repeated before. You know what, if you're saying that, I have a feeling they were, but we'll check them out first anyway. 1, what did you think of the Stormblood trailer? The full trailer, you know, other than revealing authored, it does very little to show the degree of conflict that is in motion here. I mean, think about it. You see, you know, 2 monks sparring, and then you see a samurai fight off some ninja guard, you know, in Kugane, and then you see Yugiri and Gosetsu. But you don't see the conflict other than the eerie loom over Garlemald on the world map. There's nothing. It doesn't show the war or the armies or really much of the meat of the story. It just basically says, we're going to these two places. Samurai's cool and monks are cool, you know? So as cool as it is, as I use the word cool a lot, it wasn't very exciting to me. It was more exciting when I saw it the first time, but when I saw the full one and didn't really get to see more of this conflict with Garlemald, it was a bit disappointing. Two, what can you tell us about Authored other than what was presented at FanFest? So this is a continent to the far east. There's also a continent between Authored and Eorzea, which is the Near East, and that was Ilsabard. So we still have that. We also have the island of Thavnair to the south. The world map, I believe, actually added Old Charlayan. I don't remember the old world map having Old Charlayan and the islands to the north available there. The big thing about there is it is, of course, a Far East nation. It has a lot of different Japanese influences. You know, they talk about post-Edo, pre-Edo, different aspects of it, and there are different cultures. Even though the majority of the lands follow Japanese culture, a lot of them follow different timelines and eras and different things, and they're all mixed together in such a way that is hopefully interesting to the players who either know a lot about those eras and can point things out, or people who just think that it looks pretty and cool. As for Authored itself, Doma is controlled by Garlemald, as is most of that continent. We are going to the port town of Kugane, which is one of the only port towns, or the only port town, that actually allows for international trade. I call it international trade, but that's not what they call it. So there's a lot going on there, and we also suspect that in the northwest of the continent, you know, very close to Garlemald, in those mountainous areas, that we are likely to encounter the remaining two dragons, Azdaja and Vertra and Azdaja. We expect to run into at least one of them, perhaps not in this expansion, but as we move closer to Garlemald, because there are still two more of Midgardsormr's sons out there who we have not gotten to meet. Question number 3, how do you like the new housing district? It's good. I think the big thing to remember is that I don't think that those types of houses are restricted to Kugane, but they fit a lot better in Kugane. I'm not a big housing guy. It's just not my thing, especially with all the drama involved around housing and its availability. So, I mean, as long as they can fit new ones in there, I'm cool. You know, Ishgard was what a lot of people suspected. And as long as they've got room, I mean, I'm cool for them to keep adding as much housing as they want. It's not important to me, but I know it's important to a lot of people. So, you know, I kind of have neutral thoughts about the whole thing. And 4, where's Aloha? You know, he's not in the room right now. He's sleeping in the other room. But thank you for the questions. Those were actually, those were pretty good ones. And the final question for this week, since we are not live on Twitch, I'm just doing the forum questions. Hey, Haps, how you doing? Yo, I'm doing all right. How you doing? Before I get to my question, I want to thank you for your content as well as your commentary during the keynote. It's my first time watching it, and your excitement helped make it all better. So you know I was hoping for Samurai Tank 2. It's alright. Ethis and Sly will chew me out for that one on Tuesday. Don't you worry. As for my question, which is in bold if you're short on time, which I am not, I played 14 on PS4 controller for a while now, and I've leveled 2 tanks, plenty of DPS, but I want to have a good healer for Stormblood. Okay, some balance. Leveling Asher, I'm having a hard time keeping everyone alive and DPS, as it's hard to switch targets. I have a wireless keyboard mouse. I never recommend that, by the way. It's gotten better over the years. It's really not that bad anymore, but I've had too many issues in the past with things that are wireless, whether it be response time, disconnecting, any of those things just screws me up and I don't feel like dealing with it. I find the controller more comfortable, but if everyone dies, what's the point? You know, you got a good point there. Would spending the time to get comfortable playing with mouse and keyboard make me a better player overall? Should I stick to controller? I think you should just stick to controller. Stick to what you're good at. There are plenty of good healers out there who play with controller. It's a feasible thing. And I know plenty of people who do tank and DPS. They play on PC, but they play with a controller. I don't see why there's any reason you should force yourself to learn mouse and keyboard unless you find that healing on a controller is impossible for you. And even then, it's still kind of weird because then you'd have to learn all the jobs on mouse and keyboard because you don't want to be constantly switching. I think you should get comfortable with just healing on the controller first. And then once you're comfortable just healing, you've got where the buttons are down, then start working on your DPS a little bit more. The thing I liked about learning controller was that in dungeons, I was so nervous about fucking it up because I was new to it when I first did the Healer Happy series that I focused a lot more on healing. But because I was soloing so frequently, I also got used to the to the muscle memory of accessing my DPS skills. Eventually, I just decided one dungeon to combine those two things, and I found that DPSing and healing, outside of the occasional misclick from not being a super savvy controller player, was actually a pretty feasible thing to achieve. The only thing I will say about controller healing, I hate it for 24-man stuff, because I'm someone who likes to heal the other alliances very frequently, just in case, you know, there are healers in the other alliance that maybe either disconnect or they die or something goes wrong, and I just want to give them a little bit of backup. And I hate doing that on controller. It just doesn't feel as good scrolling through 24 people as it does scrolling through 8. But anyway, hopefully that was a good enough answer for you. Some good questions this week, guys. Thank you for your questions. For Mondays with Mr. Happy this week, be sure to check out the videos at the bottom of the screen. I had some submissions for what I should say there instead of videos at the bottom of the video. Videos at the bottom of the screen. I used to say that, and I stopped because I was like, what if I'm not at the bottom of their screen? I'm not even at the bottom of my own screen. Thinking emoji. Thinking emoji. Videos at the bottom of the screen. We'll go with that one. Be sure to like, favorite, subscribe, and share, and stay tuned. We've got more news and information coming up, especially this week. We got Final Fantasy 15 time-limited hunts on Tuesday. I'm going to be streaming that, and I'm looking forward to a bunch of the other stuff going on. So be sure to come by the stream. Be sure to stay tuned to the YouTube channel. It's all going to be good. Anyway, thanks for watching. Until next time, take care.